So, as we talked about last week, we're free from fear, correct? Our adoption as children of God has brought us freedom from the chains of fear. So we no longer have any reason to fear death, to fear evil, to fear anything that can ever be brought against us. It's central to our faith. Paul reminds us that nothing has the power to separate us, to condemn us, or has the ability to lay claim on us. Nothing can take us from our salvation or from our God. Our God is so great that as His children we have nothing to fear, because the hand of God is always upon us. So that means that fear has absolutely no place in our lives, correct? Well, that might be the easiest conclusion to draw, but then, as usual, with most any of our conclusions, as Corinthians found with their wisdom, as soon as we open Scripture, everything we know is dashed across the rocks. Laced throughout the Old Testament, and even in the New, is the call to fear God. Proverbs says fear is the beginning of wisdom. Deuteronomy says that the part of the law is to fear God, as Dwight just read for us. I mean, the first line you read, it says, the one thing He requires of us is to fear God. So, we're free from fear, but yet fear is necessary for salvation. Does that make sense to you? Does that confuse anybody here right now? Because I'll put my hands up with you right now. Because on the surface, that'll confuse just about anybody. How are we supposed to be free from fear and still fear God? Well, maybe you can write that off as just being part of the Old Testament law. We're free from that anyway, right? This is the New Covenant. That was part of the Old Covenant. There's no room for fear in the New Covenant. If only it were that easy. If you've been paying attention to the sermon the past couple weeks, your mind should be drifting right now to probably Matthew chapter 10, which we've read the last probably 3 weeks now. And Jesus Himself stands up and says, don't fear those who can kill the body, but fear the one who can destroy the soul, who judges the soul. Okay, so much for that excuse. Apparently fear is part of the New Covenant too. Even throughout the New Testament, the righteous are proclaimed as those who fear God. 2 Corinthians 7:1 says, since we have these promises, beloved, let us cleanse ourselves from every defilement of the body and spirit, bringing holiness to completion in the fear of God. Did you catch that? It was a pretty strong statement. How do we bring holiness to completion? How do we become holy? It's to fear God. Without fearing God, we can do none of the above. There's some squeaking going on back there. I hope we would all agree that we're supposed to pursue holiness, right? That's a pretty clear mandate from Scripture, okay? Love others, be a disciple, be holy as the Lord your God is holy. I mean, it's a pretty basic concept. So, in order to make that pursuit, in order for us to gain any ground whatsoever, we have to have a healthy fear of God. So then this begs the question, what does it mean to fear God? Well, when you think of fear, what do you think of? What's the first thing you think of when you think of fear? Obedience, but that's not the first thing I think of when I think of fear. I mean, think of little spiders. I don't want to. That's a spider. Yeah, some. Yeah. What is fear to you? I'm not talking about fear of God because we're putting these in two different categories. What is fear to you?
Eternal revenue service.
There you go. Remember last week we started off as what is your greatest fear? I'm sure your concept of what your greatest fear is and fear of God are two entirely different things. See, for me, the first thing I think of when I think of fear is this gut-wrenching, torturous, terrifying fear. And my mind drifts a little bit. It's about 1.5 years ago when I spent the summer in Uganda, East Africa. While there, the group that I went with, that I traveled with, went whitewater rafting in the Victorian White Nile. Now, if you know anything about the Nile River, the Victorian White Nile in particular, it is considered one of the two most dangerous and most difficult rivers And I had no problem with that. So I figured, no problem, I can handle that. Well, about halfway through the day, we came to a rapid called the Silverback. A Class 5 rapid that was the longest we would go through all day. Now, Class 5 is the highest difficulty of all the rapids. If you imagine a Class 6, think of Niagara Falls. Niagara Falls is a Class 6. This was a Class 5. Okay? So it's pretty intense. So I'm excited, ready for anything. And as we start to go into this first part of this rapid, because, see, this rapid is separated into multiple parts of these really difficult things. And we're going down, and I mean go down because it's like going over a hill, okay? You're going, and you don't see anything in front of you, all of a sudden it's like, boom, and you're just in. And as we're getting ready to go down to the rapid, our guide in the back of the boat who's steering yells, "Get down!" So we all duck into the boat, cover our heads, stick our oars over the top of our heads, and we all huddle in. Before I know it, I'm not inside the boat anymore. I'm outside the boat. My paddle's gone. I mean, all that hold on to your paddle, don't lose your paddle stuff, oh, that was the first thing that was gone. I mean, as soon as my butt was off the seat of the boat, that paddle was gone. And the boat's gone. I don't know where the boat went. I can't find anyone for my boat. And I'm not above the water. I'm under the water. So after about an hour, I finally popped up. It sure felt that way. It was probably only about 15 seconds. But, it sure felt that way. Sweet relief. I'm finally free of the wave. That wasn't so bad. Only that was the first main wave in a series of 3. See, these rapids, you'd hit this wave, it was like a bowl, okay? So you'd hit the bowl, and then you come out. I wish I had the video. One of my friends got the video of it. And you'd watch the video, the boat would go in, hit the wave, and then all of a sudden, the boat was gone. Like this big red boat, I mean, this thing was probably maybe 18 feet long, was just gone. The wave ate it. So then you're sitting there going, okay, where'd the boat go? Is it going to come out the other side? About 15 seconds later, the boat pops up, and it's in the same place that it went under. It never went anywhere. But we did. Nobody was in the boat anymore. And I really wish I had that video, because it would have explained everything that bothered me about this. Well, ultimately, okay, that's one wave. And there's 2 more. And I've only gone through 1, and I'm not in my boat anymore. Before I was even able to pull up the air that I so desperately wanted, I was pulled under again. This rapid consisted of about maybe a half mile. It went on for a long time. Then I rose and was pulled under again. I could not get any air. I was sucking in water, hoping it would suffice for the oxygen I so desperately wanted. I've never taken in so much water. It seemed like it would never end. The entire episode probably lasted maybe 3 or 4 minutes before I emerged on the other side of the rapid in smooth water again. I have never been so shaken and afraid in my life. I found myself shot well downriver from the rest of my group and all the other boats. One of the kayakers eventually spotted me. See, because for every boat there's probably like 4 kayakers to come scoop up everybody who falls out. One of the kayakers spotted me and came and got me and dragged me back, and I was back in the boat. But this was the last place I wanted to be. I wanted to be back on dry land, but we were only halfway to our destination. When I think of fear, I think of this experience. So I'm told that I should fear God. But this can't be right, because if this is what fear is, then I don't want it. I can't do it. I can't rest. This does not sound in any way like freedom or saving.